The point at which you go from, I will learn a bunch of things because I can become that, to the catastrophically eroding thought of, I didn't become that. What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. Growing up, I always found myself curious and learning. I never looked at a topic or a skill and said to myself, oh, that's too hard. I can't learn that. I always figured out how to teach myself something that I wanted to learn. Before the invention of YouTube, that was much harder. You had to do research and find books. That didn't stop me though. I've taught myself how to code, how to play the guitar and other music production, complex math, sports, financial markets. There wasn't a category of thing I ever told myself I could not learn. Now, I didn't lie to myself and think that I could be Michael Jordan in basketball or whatever, but I never discounted myself from having the ability to learn and then actually beginning to learn something. Nothing ever stopped me that overwhelmed me or made me tell myself that it was too big for me. Now, what frustrated me being this way always is that I found that many people around me do not have the same spirit. Many people do the exact opposite. They discount themselves right away. They count themselves out. They eliminate themselves before even trying something. Many of my friends who have thought themselves to be a certain type of way will not even venture into the categories of things that they have already deemed themselves to be outside the realm of their inclinations. If they think they're not good at math, they're just not going to attempt to get better at math. People who are not technical, who have already decided they do not have the kind of conceptual understanding of something, and so will not even attempt to troubleshoot their technology, or worse, even the evolving ones, to learn them. Friends who never fully got acclimated to computers are now letting themselves get even left further behind by not utilizing tools like AI. And it's just ironic because it's like we have created an assessment of our entire being without actually trying to be. I'm not musically inclined, not particularly academically gifted. There are many things I can easily discount myself right out of. Many things I can easily take the same approach and before even trying, just tell myself, I am not that thing, so why even bother? And the thing is, people will continue down their antiquated paths without upgrading their software in their mind or their habits and the way they do things or incorporating new and better ways of doing things because they have accepted the story they tell themselves about how they are better with the ways they do things now, how it helps them, how it works for them. And maybe it's just personality differences. Maybe they're not as open to experiences. But I'm red light flashing a huge warning sign if you can even relate to this, regardless of your personality. Because you are letting yourself become obsolete. You are going to fade out amongst the crowd of people who continue to evolve and upgrade their methods. Mark Cuban knows everything about upcoming technology and the emerging things, even though he made his money in internet back in 1999. We forget we live in a marketplace, in competition, and the person who can do your role faster, more efficiently will win. And more than half the time, they are just better because they remain nimble through the shifts and the wind. They're not just better because they're just better because they remain nimble and sway with the shifts of the wind instead of fighting the resistance. The tallest trees sway the most. They have the most give. They pose the least resistance. Now, life has humbled me a bit because it showed me, in me, this part of people that is also in me that causes us to stagnate, that becomes the stop sign of growth. I always got frustrated because I couldn't relate to these people, and now I can relate to these people. I know what causes us to stagnate. I got to see in myself the very point at which I have been tempted to stop learning and stay as I am. And luckily, I can see the alarms go off. But it gives me perspective nonetheless to become, to play out the very thing that I judge. You know, I always wondered why this was this way. How come I would suggest something to someone to do something that they do in a better way, or to learn something they don't understand, or to build a new routine, or to incorporate something, or to improve something they are working on? I always wondered why I met with so much resistance. Like, why wouldn't they just go and learn the damn thing? Spend the damn time to expand their understanding. Even today, I get frustrated when someone comes to the gym or is trying to do something in the world, but won't spend a few hours a week just researching how to improve in their craft. Pick up a camera, but won't watch some videos on how to improve your cinematography. It's so much easier today to get better at things. So much easier to build a curriculum for yourself to get better at things. But people won't work on their craft. They won't sharpen their axe so that each swing next week is more effective. Why don't people try? And I think I figured out the answer because I saw it in myself. And it all comes down to your expectation of the future and the goals that might or might not be nestled into that future projection. I realized therein lies the most fundamental issue that plagues people, that becomes a dam that stops the flow of information and knowledge and ultimately expansion. And that is, they lose their view of the future. And so everything they do today loses its point of doing it. They don't see how it makes any sense to do it. And then it's obvious that you would reject and say, why should I learn this thing if I don't see any point in it? And you would be right. And the thing is, though, that you are not realizing that I clicked onto is that it is just in the hope for a future that any improvement can even be considered. As soon as you lose your hope for the future, you lose your drive in the present. Most of the people that die at 25 and are buried at 75 is because they lose their hope for the future at 25 that I'm experiencing at 36. Having been thrown off track in my life during what feels like some of the most crucial years has made me a bit resentful towards existence in itself, because I owe my todays to my yesterdays, and my todays not being what I imagined them to be are because I didn't spend my yesterdays to support my today. And the tempting low road that most of us go down in this line of thinking is that the loss of time means the permanent loss of opportunity to what I can be, what I want to be. That the imagination can be realized still, mainly amplified by frustration of living as my present self. Not having all the things my past self imagined makes me even more resentful and regretful, and then entitled to an imagined present that I didn't work to create. Now, being in this state, I have found myself behave in the ways I found frustrating in others. The version of me that I knew, that would watch courses for hours on end and take copious notes and read books after books and go from huge topics to soak up as much information. That version of me is now met with this other version of me that says, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? Why even bother? And it has killed my ability to dive into various topics because I'm doing now what I never did before, which is to filter all of my efforts through an ask. And that ask is, how does this help what I'm trying to do? What's the point in reconciling my loss of hope for the future? And because I'm less optimistic about something drastically different in the future that I am today, all the various things I used to be able to easily learn no longer appeal to me. It's almost as if I have accepted that I am who I am, and I am not those other things. And this is the key to the breaking point in which we all shift into stagnation that I have seen play out in myself. The point at which you go from, I will learn a bunch of things because I can become that, to the catastrophically eroding thought of, I didn't become that. It's a huge perspective shift that discounts time ahead because of all the time that has been spent behind. And that, my friend, is what I suspect happens to many of us. To all of my friends I have encountered and people in my life who stop growing. The second you start saying you didn't become that, instead of I can become that, it's almost a resigned admittance of the past. And that the time ahead has no value. When I stop saying I could be that I could also become that I can also do that, the second I stop being able to have that flexibility in my spirit, because I foolishly think that somehow the time past has defined me more than the time ahead can, because I fail to live in the imagination that I once had as a kid who could voraciously learn and move through different disciplines with ease, because I now impose the belief that I have lost time, that I should have already picked something specifically in all the disciplines that I have tried, and now continuing to try a bunch of different things is only a waste of time. The second I believe that any of us make this shift, everything will trigger you. You will no longer be able to watch people smarter than you, doing better than you, without the pinch, the hurt inside, that you are not all that you can be. To use them as a reminder that you are not a full expression of yourself that also takes up just as much space in the world. And this feeling will only restrict you more into yourself. The second you stop being a possibilist, a person who believes in the possibilities of everything, the moment you let what has happened to you be more defining than the imagination of a life ahead, that can drastically shift any definition that you have mustered up so far. The minute you let yourself think that you have lost time and that this lost time could not be made up through concentrated effort and focus and pursuit, that's the minute you stop growing and stay as you are. And the minute you stop considering that you can even learn something new, pick up something new, develop something that might benefit you in the future, even if you can't clearly see where it adds up right now. It's the minute you give up on life, because you give up on all the possibilities of your future. Your present then will define you forever. Our soul is here to transform. The process of transformation is never supposed to end. Something within us, though, resists change, resists the consideration that we have to let what is now die for something new to be born. It is in this clinging that we miss out on what most of life has to offer us. There is no time, age, season that restricts the soul's assignment to transform or grow. Until your very last breath, you have to accept this. You will always be between the tension of now and where you are going. And everything along the way is relevant to learn, to absorb, to consider, to incorporate. The forces that pull you to grow never stop. You just have to stop holding on so tightly and let yourself stretch. And let yourself go. You are surrounded by green lights, but you carry around your own stop sign. I love you, family. Stay true always. I see you on the next show.